Now you're on.
So, in 2016, I was in Ireland singing with my choir, and we were up in County Sligo, and we were sort of touring some of the areas, and we came across a small village called Drumcliff, and we sang in that church called St. Columba. And just as we were getting, we had practiced and had a little time to excursion around that churchyard. I started to notice the name Park showing up on wall plaque memorials and in the graveyard. And this is where, you know, uh, let me just pull up my notes. Um, it was a cute, it's a wonderful church. Let me see if I can pull up some of my pictures. Um, Give me 2 seconds. So I went back and looked at the pictures that I took when I was visiting. And let me just see, they're all in thumbtack, and I can't figure out a way to show them in larger. Let me go back to.
And when you're ready, you should be able to share screen.
Okay. I may not, just because I've been able to print the pictures
hmm.
or copy the pictures into. So I'm going to go ahead and I'll just share real quickly. So it was a wonderfully beautiful little church. And again, I was looking at the wall plaques and memorials, and I came across a number of parks that were there. And so I said to Ken, why don't I do a little research? I've been meaning to do this since I went, about who these parks were. Obviously in Ireland, obviously in Northern Ireland and County Sligo, and how do they fit into sort of our family tree? So just a couple of days ago, I sort of took a deep dive off of there and actually found that it's a pretty, the people that I saw the memorials for were actually descended from a long line of people who came over as planters on behalf of the crown, James I, to occupy some of the lands that had been, surrendered by, in this case, the O'Rourke's. And so I'm going to start by showing you guys just the inside of the church. It's just a very beautiful interior. And what I found out is that during this time that the church was built, that they didn't use crosses and things of that nature within to embellish sort of the front of the church. Let me just see, where can I share? Oh, here we go. And what I'll do is, I'll share each, and then so if you all can see, that's the front of the church, pulpit off to the left. It's not a great picture, but it just was really, it was very striking to me. And like I said, I started to go around the sides of the church and started finding the park. So let me show you another picture let me just do this. I'm going to stop sharing. Sorry about this. I'm trying to share some of the pictures of what kind of got me going down this rabbit hole. And I don't know, whether we have much information in the Park Society about this family or not. And I want to ask, based on this research that I've done, whether or not, that can help us sort of put some things together. It started with a Roger Parks in around 1608, who came to the area with his two sons, Robert and William. And Robert stayed in what became called Parks Castle. And William went on to, and I'm going to butcher the name of it, Drumsmere Castle, before he went on to Donnelly, Doonally, and where the successive generations of Parks resided and where this church is. Just see. Sorry. Just trying to put them all into one spot. I'm not. So anyway, I'll show you these. So this was another thing that I really liked about this. They had a plaque in the back of sort of beside the church that showed where all of the gravestones were, the family plots, if you will. And what you all can't see very well, but right here, this is the backside of the church, was where one of the Parks family members was buried. And this gentleman's name was, get this, Roger Charles Parks, who was born in 1816 and died in 1889. Then there was another Parks at the front of the cemetery that was an earlier burial. And this is just so everybody can see, it is a Church of Ireland. So this was an English family that came over from Kent, is what I was able to find out. And I'll just sort of some from some of the notes. I wish I had been able to put it, but like I said, I kind of went down a rabbit hole. So and it kind of got me into all sorts of interesting things, and I'll show this too. This is a picture called, and this was the home of Robert Parke, who was the son of Roger, who came over and took over. It was called at one point Newton Castle, but then became it's called Parks Castle, and it has been restored. And you can go and see it. It is in, I don't know if you can see it. So this is what is called Parks Castle. And again, the original the father who came in was Roger Parke, and he had married a woman by the name of Alice Jones, and her brother was also came in as at the invitation of the crown to sort of be the planters of this community, taking over the land that had come from sort of the Irish who were warring with James the First. This is not the original castle that O'Rourke had built. He had more of a tower kind of castle. But in the courtyard here, you'll see that they actually, as they were doing the renovation work on this, on this property, they were able to find some of the original work that the O'Rourkes had done, and even probably earlier. So this castle, I mean, it dates back to, there were different pieces of it, but the 1200s, and maybe even earlier. But again, it's a fortress, and it was built for that purpose, even by Robert Parke at the time. So what was interesting about what I found, and I'm just going to go to my notes really quickly. Right now, Parks Castle is part of the Office of Public Works, which is now part of the government. So it is not in private hands. The last park to have this property was, I think, in the early 1900s when it was sold. Interesting enough, how it all came to be and how O'Rourke fell out of favor with the crown is during the Spanish. Well, he just was constantly at war with the English at various different points, with both Elizabeth I and James as well. And he finally, at a certain point, just kind of made certain people angry enough that he was killed, and he was killed. He was taken to London Tower, and he was hung there, and all sorts of other things that were very brutal. I was reading an account of it. But so when the Parks came to this, so they came from Kent, which is not something I think we really, or I knew until recently. And as a result of that, it also indicated that even though they owned lands in Ireland, at least for the first couple of generations, so Roger and his sons, Robert and William, were likely also living in England at various different points. Um, Most of the people who are in the graveyard that I found descend from Roger's son, William. William at first took over another O'Rourke castle, if you will, called Dromahair Castle. And he was residing there with his family until about 1641. There is information that some of the researchers have found that said that he fled to the safety of his brother's castle um, when there was, and this was around the time of disturbances among the Irish and the English. So it's, and I couldn't find anything else about whether or not he had returned to this property in, or not. But by the next generation, his son, so Roger William, now comes another William who was born about 1600. And he was, they say that he is the one who removed to Denali or Dune Alley. I don't know how to pronounce that. Does anybody have any? Nobody? I unfortunately have. Okay.
Can you spell it
Um,
again?
I'm sorry, Gay.
Yeah, could you spell it again?
So I've seen it spelled now various different ways. So Doonally or Dunally. And sort of there's another variation as well that I didn't see that much of, but that is where, and Dunally, it's all in County Sligo, but it's a township, I guess. And I believe it's still there, but they spell it Doonally now. So from those, we have um, William, we have William Parke, who was actually born at the castle in County Leitrim. So this is sort of right over the border from Sligo. And that was born in 1630. So he's the son, as I mentioned, of the man who took over that castle, Drumhair. And then he, in turn, what was interesting too is that, a lot of them took offices at various different points, certainly involved in the military, but they were also the high sheriff of Sligo at various different points. And some of it was uncles and some, they were directly involved with. Another William Parks, who was the son of William, born about 1660, and he was the first being born in Dunally, Dunally. That's how they referenced it then, which was part of County Sligo. And then we went to a Roger Parks, who was born about 1690 and died in 1726. And he was married to Isabella Ormsby. Again, residing completely in Dunally, County Sligo. And he was the high sheriff of Sligo, so he was another one. Then we have Roger Parks, son of Roger, who was born in 1720. And then we have Lieutenant Colonel Roger Parks, born about 1750. And he had his memorial stone in the church. We also had, next in line was William Parks, 1779, who was in Dunally, and he married a Louisa Elizabeth Johnstone. And then it went to Lieutenant Colonel Roger Charles Parks, who I also have his gravestone. And he was the son of, and that's the last one that I have. But let me show you the pictures that I was able to, let's just see if I can pull up my picture file.
Hey, Susan,
Yes,
do you know if any of the people are represented in any of the Park Society files, or do you
it's a
know
good
that-
question. I did not have an opportunity to check with, on my own or um, with
I
Tad.
I can chime in on that when you're ready.
Sure. I mean, go ahead. I'm going to pull up some pictures just so
Yeah.
that we're.
And I only remembered that I had these files like this morning or this way, and so I will send them to you, Susan. Um, but I've got a whole folder full of County Sligo stuff that I've had for years, intending to do something with it. And I was hoping actually that Ken Maybe, who attends these meetings quite often, might be here today, because that's one of his line is from Sligo, and there are actually more than one park line in County Sligo, and we're trying to sort them out. And of course, DNA is an excellent way to do that.
Well, and in Ken, this case, and what kind of shocked me a bit was I fully intended thinking when I saw all of this, despite the fact that they were, well, even with Church of England, I was surprised when I found that they did not come from Scotland, at least not, in this instance. At the time that this group of family came in and settled in this area, they all descended from a family of Parks who came from Kent.
Well, Sligo is not part of Ulster, so they would not have been part of the Ulster plantation scheme. And
yeah,
Ken's cousin has taken a DNA test, and it's lineage key VP, and his earliest ancestor, I think, on that line is another Roger Park, who was born in sometime in the 1780s, and his son was born in Sligo, and he is the immigrant ancestor who came to New York State early 1800s, I believe. Others in that genetic group, which is group 42 in our DNA project, include the lineage key Q line, which is Lieutenant Richard Parks, who for many years was thought to be descended from Robert Park, and the DNA tells us, of course, that that's not true. And interestingly, this is the group that has the two Purse House gentlemen, one who lives in Australia and one in South Africa. And I've told that story before, but we have this variation of our surname that we were never aware of until these gentlemen turned up in the DNA project, spelled Perhouse, Purse House. And their line goes back to Staffordshire in the 1500s. And they shared a printed reference in some book explaining the origin of their surname, in that in those early days, someone would say that someone was of John Park's house. And somehow the Park's house, either through that regional dialect, because I know even in Scotland, Park is pronounced Perk. So that Perk's house morphed into Purse House somehow. But they are also genetically connected. And of course, Staffordshire is not Kent, but obviously there's a lot of time distance in there, and people did move and migrate and end up in different parts of the country for various reasons. So again, I can send you files. I think I downloaded and tried to extract all of the Roman Catholic Park marriages in Sligo, because that's a different line, obviously, and then all of the Protestant marriages. And even among the Protestant Park lines, those things, it appears there are at least two distinct lines, one of them being the line that we've been talking about today. And I don't know, but because of the prevalence of Roger, I would suspect that possibly Ken VP is part of that. It would be nice to have a own descendant from this line. Well,
Well, you know, it might be kind of interesting, Ken, as a further sort of exploration on this is to, you know, look within this area, in and around Drumcliff today to
Hmm.
see if there are any parks that are there, and then try and trace their trees backwards to see if they in fact hook into this family or they're affiliated with another. Because I think it would be interesting to try and figure out, um, you know, it certainly makes sense why they came into Ireland when they did, but I was assuming that when I finished all of this might have been, that they might have tracked, you know, that their origins might have gone back up into Scotland. So, yeah.
well, anything can happen, but at this point, it does look like they were probably English.
Oh, like Robert Parks. I mean, that's, you know, my family line, and they came from England. So, and around, you know, it's interesting just sort of the timetable of this, but the stone we're looking at, this is probably the first one that I came across, was the daughters of William and William Parke and Louisa Elizabeth Johnstone was her maiden name, Parke. And I see most of their family was the war memorials on the walls and those types of things, but very beautiful. And actually the poet is buried there as well. And I'm going to just pull up that picture again, see if I can't. Give me 2 seconds.
Well, you're looking, David. Welcome. You slipped in us, but and it looks like we lost your grandson. He probably has an exam to study for. But we're glad he joined us for the first part of the meeting.
I couldn't get in.
Oh, well, as soon as I saw you in there, I let you in, but
Well, thank you.
it wasn't intentional. We were kept you on hold.
No, it's all right. I can't get my Park Society number in, 52.
Oh, it's 52, yeah.
And thank you for putting me in the newsletter.
Well, thank you for writing that article. It saved me a lot of time and effort. So
I wrote another whole article on Park Castle up in that area.
Hmm.
And it's back there in one of those old volumes.
Well, we'll take a look, because one of the things we started doing in the newsletters for a while, and we've sort of let it fall to the wayside, was reprinting articles from past issues that, you know, just to bring them back to attention of people. So we'll take a look at that.
Well, thank you.
So this is one of the exteriors. This is one of the stones. This is, you can't read it out, but it's Roger Charles Parks, who was also a son of William and Louisa Elizabeth Johnstone Parke. And he is buried in the churchyard. He's also mentioned on one of the memorial stones. Let me see if I can't find that. But as you can tell, it needs a little love here. I tried very hard to get the photos so that I could read everything, but it was, and as you may or may not be able to see, it does include a lot of really wonderful information. It says Roger Charles Parks of Dunalley. Then it is eldest son of, and this is where it gets, it's Sir
Sometimes-
William Parke.
Sometimes with photos like that, if you reverse the
Image?
well, not reverse the image, but you know, you go from black to white, or I don't know if I'm not using the right term, but like when you look at old documents, sometimes if you make it a black background and the writing is in white,
Like a negative.
Yeah.
it makes it easier to read.
And then you see a Louisa Elizabeth here, sort of right at the bottom. So, just a really beautiful churchyard. And let me find again. There's some memorials.
Well, you're looking, I couldn't look up the town land for Sligo because it's not included in this book, but if any of you are not aware of it, there's a book that has only been published within the last year called the Townland Atlas of Ulster. and it's, as you can see, it's pretty thick. Published by the Ulster Historical Foundation, and it's not cheap, but it's very complete. So if you're looking or doing research in Ulster, this could be a very valuable resource.
Ken, what years is that for? Do you know?
As far as I know, going back as far as they have information. I mean, they've gone back their barony maps and registration districts with poor law unions and that sort of thing. So it's not, it's old information, as old as they could have access to.
Ken, how much do they have for Enniskillen, Ireland?
In this,
Yeah, I'm curious.
Enniskillen,
Enniskillen. Sounds like a good book to get.
yeah. Well, it might take me longer to find than we have today. But
no, even if you had just it's got like 7 pages or 70 pages, or
I will look it up later, and if I find it, I will email it to you.
Yeah, appreciate
That's what we got.
No,
So,
speaking of
What
books,
county was that?
this conversation has really stirred up a book I'm reading right now, and I think I found it either through a previous Park Society gathering or watching a YouTube video on DNA. It's called Albion Seed, or British Folkways in America.
Yeah, that's is that David Fisher Hackett? No, David Fisher Hackett. No, it's
I'll put the link in there. It's fascinating because there's the very first wave is New England, and obviously the Winthrop fleets play a prominent role in there.
Yeah.
And it looks at the Cavaliers that came into the Chesapeake Bay.
Yeah, I have talked about it, and I think it is David Hackett Fisher's, but I could be
Right.
wrong.
It's
Yeah.
sure.
And
It
yeah,
is
it's
fascinating. It is a fascinating thing to think about as we do all of our research and find stats and stuff like that, and we're trying to figure out the why, Susan. It's whole
it talks about the various folkways that came to America from England, from the British Isles, and where they tended to settle, and their religion and their customs and so forth. And I tell you, the more research I do, it seems to just always confirm that he did really excellent research. And so it's a book worth reading and having. Yeah.
Susan, I've just checked, and it says that the fact Sir Roger Parke arriving in Ireland during the 1600s as part of the English plantation efforts in Connaught. So,
I'm sorry?
as part of the English plantation efforts in Connaught. So,
Connaught. How do you spell that?
CONNACHT.
That's interesting because if you look up Sir Roger Jones, because that was his son married one of
the Jones, Alice Jones. Yeah.
Yes.
Their 2 sons, Robert. Yeah.
And William.
Yeah.
And then also too, I'm just going to pull up I was able to open up my all of my photographs, so you're going to see some.
Oh, good. I just quickly looked it up on AI, and it's given me a whole lot of information here.
Oh, that's interesting. So this was sort of, as we were walking in, I always like to take pictures of the different church information. Let's see, we'll go this way. So here's Andrew Parke, late major of the 8th or King's Regiment. He served as king and country for many years with credit and honor, and returned to enjoy the evening of a well-spent life in the bosom of his family, when it pleased God to take him to himself on the 3rd day of September of 1803, and it was a tablet is erected to his virtues by an affectionate son. So, but this is in the interior of the church. There's a better one. And
So
again,
how old was he when he died? Then this isn't a very early one, isn't it?
no. So this is they don't give his age.
Right.
And again, I tried calling the church, but they don't keep any of their records, which is kind of unusual. They send you on to the Church of Ireland, and I couldn't get through to anybody there. Because I would have loved to have gotten more. Here was the one I originally showed of the 2 daughters. And this is not, again, I couldn't, this is Roger Park of Denali,
Denali.
Denally, who departed his life on the 11th day of February, 1810.
So that's early as well, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
So much of Irish family history can rarely get very much before the year 1800.
And then here's one, and this was an interesting, it listed, again, there was Roger Charles Parks, who we saw the gravestone of. This is a memorial to him, who died 24 January 1889, I believe it is. Then Johnstone Park, and that is a name I hadn't seen. And when I first saw that, I was sort of like, huh, that's interesting. But Johnstone William, Johnstone happened to be his mother's maiden name, who died 27th of October, same year, 1889. And then we have, I'm going to just, Colonel Roger K. Park, of the Dragoon Guards of Donnelly, who died it looks January of 18, and I can't make that out. William Park, and I can't make out this name either. It's Glog, and then something. Died in January of 1898, and then Captain William Park, who was of the Connaught, Connaught Ranger.
The Connaught Ranger. That's yeah. The name Connaught's come up again.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then killed in action in France, 13th October, looks like 1816 or 18th of October. And this is erected by Benjamin William Park, Denali, Sligo.
So that would be during the Napoleonic Wars then, wouldn't it?
I think I see 1916, if I'm looking at the right person. Killed in action in France
Well,
in 1916. So that would be
1816.
1816.
1816.
Yeah.
Looks like 1916 to me, but what do I know?
We should look him up. I mean,
Did you? Okay, so it's not the Great War.
Well, some of them were. I mean, there is let's see. Tried to get a picture. There it is. 1916, 15th October 1916. So he was
In the Great War then.
Mm-hmm. So picture. But it was interesting, to the glory of God. Again, this was an internal memorial. This is to me, I'm very visual. So seeing all of the graves. So the poet Keats is buried almost right next door. I'll show you. Can you all see my mouse as I'm circling?
Yeah.
So Keats is in here, and so is another Parks member. The Parks are located in, I think, 3 or 4 areas of the graveyard. The one I had the close-up of, the one with the flat stone, is right down here at the back of the church, and they're also up in here. But it was just, to me, I love this map. It's very visual, and it just appealed to me. And the names were written down the side. So you see, I scanned this, and here's the Parks.
Yeah.
So they're in M, R, P, H, and J. And again, just a close-up of this area of the.
It's interesting they showed 2 spellings there, with an E and without.
Yeah. And then this was the stone I showed you earlier. It's more of a close-up. Just needs a bit of loving, but Roger Charles Parks.
Yeah.
And then I could not get a good enough picture of this because I wasn't tall enough to take a picture down, and I didn't want to desecrate the graveyard by trying to climb over that spiked fence.
Well, we're glad you didn't try.
But I'll tell you, I was so intrigued because, again, the stone, because it's laying flat, has really deteriorated.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure there is a record, you know, here in the United States, it's easy. We call the church or that it's affiliated with, and they go and look up the records. And a lot of them have them now online, but not the case here. I'd have to call the Church of Ireland and get them to dig it up for me. This is about as far as I could get. And I saw William, but I can't really make out much more than that. And, you know, looks like William and Lady Parke. Okay. But also something son of, but anyway, you get what it was intriguing to me to try and, so it appears that there were definitely more than sort of, the stone represents for not just one person, but at least two, possibly three, because it says also, so they're all in there. And I think and this was the honor roll for, you know, this would have been World War I. And you see William H. Parke. And there's a better picture of the front of the church, the wall of the. Sir William Parke of Denali, Knight, late Lieutenant Colonel. So he died 1851. And that's the outside of the church. And this was another Parke, and I couldn't read this stone at all. So if anybody is going to Ireland anytime soon who wants to stop by, it would be interesting to get more information about that. And maybe the Church of Ireland will be able to provide that for me when I reach out to them.
Well, thank you, Susan. I would like to get there one of these days. I think this is a good example of something that we can do as a society and individual members, but members working together is, I would like to see some targeted meetings going forth, to use this as a basis, a jumping off point, but focus on a DNA group, which very likely will include different lineage keys in our society. Sometimes it's an immigrant line and a lot of fragment lines that we don't know how they connect. But sometimes, as in the case of this group 42, there are several lines that are all over the place. I mean, between Staffordshire to Australia and New Zealand or Australia or South Africa and it's just trying to pull them all together with the DNA as sort of the glue that binds them. But obviously, there would be a great deal of research needed to make progress. But you use what the DNA tells you to sort of help guide and focus your research. And if we could set up meetings like this at a time convenient for as many interested members in those lineage keys who want to sort of get together and have us share what we know and combined with what they know, and then maybe formulate a plan for, a research project going forward, with several people working on it, because many hands make light work, and sometimes one person can find a resource that others are not aware of, and vice versa, and it all sort of feeds on itself. And sometimes, when one person makes progress, the whole group makes progress. So if people seem interested in that idea, we can certainly do that going forward. And it wouldn't be in our monthly slot for our regular town hall meetings, but we could set that up anytime that's convenient for that smaller working group and record those sessions so that those who can't make it could have access to that as well. What we could do is we would probably post them on our Park Society channel, but not make them public, but only send the link to those who are interested or involved.
And I'm happy, you, Ken, and I both have, Zoom accounts that I'm happy to set up a meeting if people want to,
Yeah,
and send out links for folks to use. And I don't have to be, I can designate somebody as a leader of that call. It doesn't just have to be.
yeah. And I mean, we're talking about Ireland now, but it's certainly true. It would be true for any countries or any combination of countries over there, because there's going to be overlap, and hopefully someday we'll have more and more information from North America back to a specific place. In the case of the group that Gay and I belong to, Group 8, we
Yeah.
have lines in Canada, we have lines in America, and we have lines in County Armagh. And
Australia.
now we're finding lines in Scotland, in
Yeah.
Aberdeenshire. So, and there's no reason that can't happen, throughout. And the DNA project again is a good jumping off point. Gary knows we've been having some email exchanges recently with our other administrator, John Parke, who lives in Luxembourg, and he's been in contact recently with Morris Gleason, Dr. Morris Gleason, who I know, who is very involved with DNA research in Ireland, and Martin McDowell, who is also very active in the North Ireland. Help me out, Gary. What's the F stand for? Historical Society, Northern Ireland Family Historical Society. I don't know.
Sorry, I can't help you.
NIHFS or something. But
Foundation?
maybe, yeah. But they are very instrumental and active in finding more DNA participants in Ireland, which is what we need in Ireland and in England and in Scotland, because that's what's going to start enabling us to bring all of this together.
And I'm happy to, I was thinking there's a lot of what I've sort of just spewed out today. And again, it's sort of random sort of bits of this, that, and the other. But, I'd love to figure out if there's folks that are contemporary to the families that I just identified, if they're still living in that area, then we can kind of, we'll have identified them. And then it's a amount of trying to build some trust with people that are not necessarily affiliated with, don't have any idea who we are, to ask them if they would be willing to do DNA if we so, choose to pursue that line. Because I'd be curious how these folks tie into England and into whether they even go to Scotland, which they may.
One suggestion I would have for any of us who are planning a trip to Ireland is to get in touch with a group called Ireland Reaching Out. They have a website, and it costs nothing, and I think it's irelandreachingout.ie or something like that. But if you Google them, you'll find them. And they're there to help people who are coming to visit, whether it's just for a visit or to search for your family roots or to do research or whatever. But they can help you with information and travel accommodation information, all that kind of thing. And if you were to contact them and say, I'm looking for any Parke families in this area, if you can guide me to them or put some word out, they might be able to help with something like that.
That's good to know.
Yeah.
I got the answer. It's North of Ireland Family Historical Society.
Good. Yeah. Okay. And they're worth checking out as well. And I confess I don't think I am a member, but I'm going to join soon because it's a modest membership fee, but I think it helps support their cause, and they're doing good work. So
I nearly joined, but they haven't covered Armagh yet, so I didn't bother. I don't know if they've covered it now, so you can check. They've done
Hey, Gary, could you put the name of that again in the chat for us, just so that?
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out how to use the chat. I think I've
here
in the bottom there where it says message everybody.
Here's the website. It's in there.
NIHFS, right?
.org.
North of
see.
Ireland Family Historical Society. That
Then,
work?
has anyone worked with the, let's see here, I gotta go back and look at the name here, the Public Record Office of Northern Ireland before?
Online, a little bit.
Yeah. This is
They-
the resources we were looking at that.
Honestly, I didn't, my problem was I was looking in County Antrim back in the 16 and 1700s. And it seems like most of what they have is from the 18 and 1900s. So they were rather limited in what I was looking for, my scope.
Well, that's true of anywhere in Ireland in the 16 and 1700s. It's very limited. But I think we mentioned it a few meetings ago. Check out the virtualtreasury.ie. It's a site that they are recreating the records that were lost in the fire in the records office in Dublin in the 20s. And they have some records there much earlier than the 1800s. So it's worth just seeing what's there and just sort of keeping an eye or a tab on it to check in once in a while, because that work is ongoing.
Yeah.
Susan,
Yeah.
there was a tragedy in 1677 in the Parke family there. Robert Parke, two of his children, Robert and Mary Magdalene, aged 16 and 14.
They drowned.
They drowned, yeah,
Yeah.
in Lough
Yeah.
Gill.
And it was about, their father died about 6 years before that. So Robert was the only heir. So there was another daughter, Anne, who
Right.
ended up being the heir. And she married into the Gore family, Gore.
Right.
And she resided in, so for a long period of time, nobody resided in Parke's Castle. And that people used it to, like as a farmyard. And it was really much a ruin when it was finally sort of granted over to the government, and they've really rebuilt the whole thing. I mean, it's now open to the public. They give tours. It was interesting. I was reading up on sort of all the work that they have been doing over the years to to bring it back to what it will look like. It was very different than the O'Rourke Castle, but in somebody would say, well, why did the Parkes tear down their O'Rourke's castle? They didn't. O'Rourke he brought down his own castles because he didn't want anybody living in them. So they were ruins to begin with. So, you kind of have to make do with what you get. But yeah, it was very interesting. I really didn't think I would find sort of such a strong one family line through just looking at this churchyard. Now it was a small churchyard, but it just sort of surprised me. They're all related.
Sounds like an interesting bit of research there, doesn't it?
Well, it was very interesting, but part of it too was just simply trying to figure out what they were trying to say in some of those original records. It just was very difficult to understand their use of language, and also too just the descriptions of where they were going from one place to another, because it just is the setup of how they were talking about it was just very, very different for me. So I spent a lot of time going, now where are they now?
Well, as I said, I will send you those files that I've had sitting in my computer for a number of years, because they're, just records of all the marriages in Sligo, the Parke marriages, and some other breakdowns of things. And that's the kind of thing that I've been doing. I started and need to continue in Armagh, and I started doing in Aberdeenshire, just to download everything you can find about that surname and try to make some sense of it, form some family groups, and then trace them forward if you can, and of course get some DNA is the idea.
So that was my little 2-day or 3-day effort. But and maybe what I'll do just is try to throw together sort of a quick article with the photographs of sort of, and just a little tree to show with a little blurb about what I was able to find out about them and some of the resources that I used in case anybody wants to go searching down those same paths that I did.
Well, I think there might be a place for some of this kind of information on our website if we could get our act together and make that available. I would think of calling it something like the research room, or calling all research, and have a probably by DNA groups or lineage keys grouped in that, or if there's no representation, just by the lineage key, and post information there that members can access that they may not have in the course of their research. But because like I say, I've had this stuff sitting on my computer for several years, intending to get back to it, but it's not doing anybody any good sitting there. So.
Well, I'd love to see it. So send it my way when you get a chance.
While we're talking about the website, if anybody out here on today's call or anybody watching this video has any expertise as a webmaster or with websites and would be interested in getting involved, I'm looking to lose a job. I sort of became the accidental webmaster when we started developing this new website, and I'd like to pass that along to somebody else who knows what they're doing and can handle it. We use Wix, if anybody's familiar with that, as our platform, and for a relative neophyte like myself, it's pretty user friendly. So there's a learning curve, but it's not HTML coding and all that sort of thing. It's very it's almost like working with Word docs and things, drag and drop and that sort of thing. So if I can learn it, pretty much anybody else can, and especially somebody who has more computer tech savvy than I do. So I'm always looking forward to hearing from anybody who wants to help out and pitch in.
Well, we should put something in the newsletter as well, just to say, to let people know that, if they have, a computer, and have an interest to contact us, because as much as I'd love to help, I'm not.
Well, we all have a few irons in the fire here, and that's the problem with the Park Societies. There are too few of us wearing too many hats, and we need to make a real effort to start spreading the duties around as much as we can, especially among at least the next generation down, because we're all retired, which in some ways is good, but in other ways it means we're at a certain point in our life that we have to start thinking about who's going to take over soon. So
I'm currently trying to retire from retirement.
I know. I saw you were giving up several.
I've given up several things.
Well,
yeah,
I know that feeling.
No. So, yeah. So I think I'm a bit older than most here, anyway.
Well,
nah, you're in good company here. Don't worry.
No,
I think we are all beginning to have that incurringly frequent experience of looking around and realizing you're the oldest person in the room, at an event or something. Takes a little getting used to, but
I used to teach classes in family history for about 10 years, and all my groups wanted to carry on meeting. So several of the groups, we go out to lunch sort of about 3 times a month with different groups. But each group is getting smaller and smaller, fewer and fewer people left in each one.
Well, 20 years ago when I sort of started this, 20-something years ago, I would go to a genealogy conference and I felt like a kid again because everybody was so much older. Now, not so much. Not so much.
No.
I will say this,
if you wanted to feel young, go to a genealogy event.
I do think that, at least in my household, my 30 somethings are beginning to show some interest, although they're begrudgingly kind of coming to it. They keep asking questions and I'm like, oh, you should, here's this, here's access to this. And so they have all my passwords to go in and look at different things. So I'm forever hopeful that I might be able to bring in one or both of them at some point to continue, to get interested, because they're kind of built like me. They're puzzle people, and these are puzzles that are never going to be fully solved. So I do think that once it catches hold on them, they will be down the rabbit hole with me. So
Well, that's good. And David, we were encouraged to see your grandson here. Because he's at a point in his life where he's got plenty on his plate in terms of getting an education and getting a career started. But just to be the fact that he's willing to expose himself to us, that down the road, when it's the appropriate time in life, hopefully, he and others like him at that generation, or Susan's kids, will step in and pick up where we are going to leave off.
I'm really hoping that he will. He's going to be a constitutional lawyer.
Wow.
He is absolutely brilliant, and he goes to Harvard. So,
well,
oh, fantastic!
Not to get too political, but I hope there's still such a thing.
I know.
as to have a career about by the time he finishes school, but we won't go there today.
Well, thank you. I'll tell him that.
Okay. We hope his career is not obsolete by the time he gets his degree. Ted.
That's one thing I've always said, is that genealogy doesn't seem to start until the gray hairs start to appear. And, it's rare when you have somebody who is younger that actually starts asking questions and wants to know where is great grandfather buried and so forth. And, but it's a thing about genealogy. They don't start thinking about before our generation until those gray hairs go there. And
well, that was certainly true, I think, even more so in years gone by, before the advent of computers and ancestry.com and all of the resources that now are available. Until you got to a certain point in life, you didn't have the time or resources to travel to repositories and libraries and things. So hopefully, this technological marvel of an age that we're living in terms of genealogy, and allows people at a younger age to be able to participate.
You bring up, so I got involved when I was we were trying to come up with names for our children. And we both decided that we wanted to have family names, and we wanted to know more about some of the use of the names in our families. And it's interesting, my oldest, who is thinking about kids, was asking the same question. That's why she wanted my access to my ancestry, was to start looking at family names. So that's how I got started. So I'm hoping that that's the rabbit hole that takes, them down. But, because it's a way of tying yourself to your family. So for me, it came in, but to your point, back then it was, okay, there was nothing online. So it was like, where do we go? And I just so happened to find the New England Historical Genealogical Society, and they had a lending library. So you'd fill out a little piece of paper and you'd mail it in. And then a couple of weeks later, a box would show up full of the books that you had ordered to borrow. And then they would, you'd use them, and then you put them back in the box with your next request for books. And you'd go on from there. But it was slow going. It just.
I have great respect when I look at some of the research that earlier members did in the 60s, 70s, 80s of the Parke Society, because I know what they had to do to find those resources, and it was a lot more work than we're used to doing these days. Now Now, if it takes more than a few seconds for a page to load on Ancestry, you get frustrated. It's like, come on, come on. All day.
You know, I
in,
was lucky
oh, sorry.
because my grandmother was, you know, she had this big, we used to call 'em Montgomery Wards. Do you remember that company?
Yeah.
Well, we had this big, I don't know where she got this piece of paper, but something must have come in it. It was we called it Mucky Wards. And she had on the back side of this large piece of paper, the line from Richard on down to us. And, you know, and I've got that now. And it's like, you know, that was what, you know, started me in genealogy. And it was when I turned 40, I think what was he, it was 1980. Yeah, around 1980, when I was changed companies, and I was with a company that it was no longer 24/7 working. And that's when I decided that maybe I ought to do something with genealogy and follow up on what my grandmother had done. And that's when somebody gave me David's name, David Parke's name, and it's history from there, you know. The thing though I like to tell people is when I go to the cemetery and put my hand on the gravestone of my great grandfather, I realize that I'm putting my hand on that same stone that his widow did.
Mm.
It gives me that connection through space and time to, you know, to that family, you know, which
This is true.
awesome to me, really is. So,
Well, when I started in family history, no, when I met my husband, he said that he'd had a genealogist in the 1950s that had proven that they were related to the Earls of Derby. Well, this is what some of the genealogists in the 50s, they gave the client what they wanted, kind of thing. So because I'm half Belgian and half Irish, he turned around, he said, you know, I've got blue blood in these veins, don't you? Whereas you're half bog, half frog. So my quest to do family history was to prove that we weren't related to the Earls of Derby. And we aren't. It was, I think it was we're supposed to have been inherited it from related via a disinherited first son, but this one, he lost his head. He was executed. Anyway, whatever. But in the end, I discovered all sorts of things like one of his uncles was involved in a religious cult and sex scandal in our local town. His great grandfather converted to Islam in the 1890s and was writing to the Sultan of Turkey. So yeah, I was very pleased to discover these things.
Sounds fascinating. I was just like,
But it hasn't been completely fascinating. It's a thing that's just kept on giving and giving, I'm afraid. But the trouble with getting younger people now, you're saying it's all available on Ancestry. They don't want to join societies. They think they don't have to because they can get it all on Ancestry. This is what we're finding as a society over here, that we can't get anybody younger interested. If we've got somebody who's under 70, we're lucky. Kind of thing. So yeah, it is the problem that most people sit at home, they see the programs on television and they think they can do it from the keyboard kind of thing. Whereas we know as a society that we still hold a lot of records that still are not online. So
absolutely.
Yep. And we have expertise. So
well, you know, it's always interesting.
You've sparked an idea that we might do for a future town hall meeting is give everyone plenty of notice and show up with your most outrageous genealogy find in your family.
Right.
Your life.
That would be fun. That would be a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's just sort of a swap meet of stories. and for some of us, it would be tough to like narrow it down. But
well, I'm sure everybody will be interested in Prophet John Rowe, who's the cult leader. In an industrial town full of cotton mills, and they're parading with a very cacophonous band and white robes all through the town. You know, it's really quite strange.
Oh, save it and work it up because I
Yeah.
think we should do this. I think we
Well,
should do this.
I've already got a talk on that one.
Well,
Thanks.
thanks everybody. I think we're approaching, almost an hour and a
Yeah.
half here. So
And it's
we'll let
going
everybody
dark now.
go. But thanks for joining us. And again, if you have any ideas for topics for future meetings, we are always open to suggestions. Always, always, always. Just get in touch.
One thing I wouldn't mind getting in touch with, we're talking about having these different groups and little meetings and everything.
Mhm.
I only know you, Ken, that's in the same group as me. I don't know if the other people that contact details or anything, Ken.
Well, occasionally some are at the meetings, like Wilma Handley, who's here sometimes. Couldn't
Right.
make it today because she's in DC for a Daughters of Union Veterans of the Civil War.
Right.
And there's a Dan Parks who shows up occasionally, who's in our group, and
Right.
others. So, yeah.
Because the only one I knew and I did correspond with for a while, he died.
Oh,
The chap from
O'Donnell.
Toronto. Yeah.
Up in Toronto, yeah, who I had the
Yeah.
pleasure of
I
meeting a
know.
couple of times, yeah.
Okay.
Okay,
Thank you.
well,
Thank you.
Thank you all for joining us. And if nobody else has anything else, I'll stop the recording and we'll end the meeting. And we'll see you next month.
Thank you. Bye.
Okay.
Bye.
Take care,
Thanks,
everybody.
everybody. Sorry to be late again.
That's okay.
Can hang on for a couple of minutes.
Okay, well then I need to go here and stop the recording here. I haven't already done that. Are you there?
I'm still here.
Okay, hold on, because things are happening here now. I've been clicking away at the wrong stuff here. Oh, here, get this down. Stop recording.